So good evening again to Jason and John Paul. So while waiting for your classmates to come in, so let me just remind you of again your assignments to comply your assignments. And once you open all the lessons that we are now under midterm and writing research reports. And under writing research reports, we have already talked about the writing style, the sample review paper, the sample research methods, and the sample discussion for experimental research and review paper. And also we're going to discuss this book entitled Scientific Writing for Agricultural Research Scientists. And in the end, you will be directed, mahaba ito, this is 193 pages. But if you can read the whole book, the better. But we will just run through, no? Run down lang tayo. And in the end, don't forget to answer your questions. Okay. And again, if you are going to answer your question, you just click. Isang question lang ito. Isang question, no? Then you answer. If your answer is wrong, you can always para ma 100%. So, but it's correct. So, i-finish lang. And you can always go back kung mali yun, no? So now going back here. So again, we are now on sample qualitative, and if you're going to click the sample qualitative, you'll be directed into this Google Drive on sample qualitative research. But before that, let me just check our attendance before I proceed. So we are only 7 yet. I'll just check another attendance next time. So yes, again, 8, bago lang ito nag-8, no? Okay. So again, ito yung sample na hintayin ko na lang na mag-17 ulit tayo. So, ito yung sample na qualitative research, which is just submitted, no, to, if you remember before, I told you we have research on agritourism, and I already presented you the proposal, and then I told you that we only finished the first phase. So ito na yung result ng first phase. And then this was done last 2019. 2020 pala. So this is now what we have submitted in the International Journal of Tourism Research. So just have a look, no, if after presenting, I will show you the link where we submitted this paper. So again, together with me is this Dr. Pratt. So this is International Journal of Tourism Research by Scholar One manuscript. This is I think release mo siguro ni. Anyway, so I'll just have another. So this is entitled already. So last time kasi ang title ng proposal is agritourism in Samoa, potentials and challenges. So this time, since proposal pa lang yun, you can always change your title whenever you decide to uh, publish your paper. And for instance, in this journal, we this is a research article, although this is a qualitative research. So ang title namin, these are just the keywords. So you need to see the keywords like agritourism, Samoa, South Pacific, and it's about climate change and push and pull constraints. So actually, yung focus namin is actually just agritourism. But then one of our co-writers suggested that it would be better na gawin namin climate change, no? So I mean dagdagan namin ng climate change. So that's why yung title ay naging The Impact of Climate Change on Agritourism in a Pacific Island Country. Is it an opportunity or double burden? O, diba? Ang galing. So, I just started on the paper and then Dr. Pratt just sort of managed to revise the paper. So this is again under International Journal of Tourism with the title. So ganito lang kaliit ang abstract niya. So again, yung abstract sometimes may be 100 or 200 words depending on kasi baka masyadong maingay. Depending on the journal na kanang instruction. So, since ano lang ito, maikli lang ito, so we can read the whole part. Kasi yung abstract, as I have said, ito na yung buo of the whole paper. And this, mind you, is how many pages? 31 pages lang naman. So agritourism has the potential to link agriculture with culture and tourism as an alternative to 3S tourism. And this study examines the opportunities and challenges of agritourism development in Samoa using qualitative approach. So ayan, this talks about agritourism and also anong ginamit na approach with a focus on climate change and the love of the land. So ito na yung result. The love of the land, education, culture, employment, additional income, and farming sustainability are the main motivation. So ibig sabihin, ito yung mga opportunity na lumabas based on our research or surveys that conducted or through the interviews. While the constraints or the double burden were predominantly structural, which include excessive business regulations, lack of funds to expand their agriculture activities, unlimited labor force, and a lack of coordination between the public and private sectors. So ito na yung result. And in the end, the ever-present threat of climate change jeopardizes agriculture, tourism, and agritourism. So dinagdagan pa ng climate change. So that makes the scenario more dramatic. So, and you have to add keywords para pag may mag-search on agritourism, on Samoa, on South Pacific, climate change, push-pull, constraints, and agriculture, it will get out immediately, no? Ma-relate. So, the introduction is just, we'll talk about agritourism or agrotourism. It will define what is agritourism, as you can see here. And ano ang uses and importance ng agritourism, of course, for additional income. Kasi nga, in the, like when you have your own farm and then you are just on farming per se, but when you add tourism, like in Puentes Pina, diba? Meron silang, di ba nagkakaw sila? And then they're adding tourism by their, ang sige, nailahang ka ng tawag dyan ka ng, nasa like mga orchids, di ba? Nasa swimming pool. And Unsa kay tawag na ilahang ano? I forgot. Kanang naay bird show. Unsa tawag sa ilahang park? Do you remember? So again, that was an example, no, of the as what I have been talking about, an example of additional income, no, using agritourism. So hopefully someday one of you can have a farm of your own, which also offers tourism. So, and another subject, you also discuss the climate change. No, what is the effect of climate change and what is climate change? And then another paragraph, you talk about specific island Samoa. No, the sun, seas, and sand tourism. So mostly kasi ang Samoa is an island country in the Pacific. It also look like Philippines, but Philippines are is a group of kasi ang Samoa mga two main island lang siya, and I don't know if na pa siya laing islands, but two main islands lang siya, unlike sa Philippines, and ang Philippines is way big compared to Samoa. So, ang isang country na Samoa is as big lang as Davao City, no? And they only have 700,000 people around the island. So what is in Samoa? You talk about that. And now, what is the problem? So it says here, despite many efforts and initiatives that have been undertaken collaboratively by the government and the private sector, the agritourism in Samoa is in its infancy. Ibig sabihin, early pa siya, hindi pa siya well developed, no? Let's say Samoa kasi is the tourist spot destination aside from Fiji by most of the Australians and also mga taga Netherlands, no, sino na country, unsa kay nang baba sa sa Australia, forgot. So yun nga, sorry, nakalimot yun ko, sorry. But then, kasi this is a tropical country, so most of them goes to Samoa. Even mga karatig countries like US and some Europeans always abot yun sa Samoa, no? And so, but then in terms of agriculture, tourism, hindi siya masyadong kasi mga beach and mga restaurants and so on lang. So those are the present status of agritourism. And so you also present in the end what are the objectives, which are to examine the opportunities and challenges of agritourism and development in Samoa. Specifically aims to identify ano yung motivations for farmers to develop different types of agritourism activities and attractions on Samoa farms. And mind you, although maliit lang ang Samoa and also very medyo yung technology in farming and also industrialization is not so updated in Samoa, like they may be far behind from technology compared to Philippines and other countries by 5 to 10 years. But then they have very rich natural resources and variety. So makikita mo doon yung a lot of varieties ng taro, ng gabi, and root crops especially. And even yung mga kasi breadfruit, they are so fond of breadfruit as a staple food. Unlike us, we have rice as staple food. So sa kanila may breadfruit sila, and they have Kasi ang varieties ng breadfruit natin dito is nasa 2 lang siguro or 3, but there, they have a lot. No, even mango. And so, yun nga, yung mga activities. Second is to explore the constraint farmers and other potential agritourism businesses face in developing agritourism and understand how climate change impacts agritourism. So, klaro naman siguro yung objective, no? And although, as you can see, we have included climate change to make it more dramatic and eye-catching to the readers and to add importance also of the paper. So the research objective, since as during days of pandemic, medyo ang tourism is parang na-set aside siya. So to make it more appealing, kaya dinagdagan siya ng mas like climate change na topic. So the research objectives are achieved through in-depth interviews with a wide selection of farms and other potential agritourism businesses, as well as those public sector organizations that can facilitate agritourism. So yun yung buong introduction. So as I have said again, the introduction for an experimental research would cover 2 to 3 pages. But for the introduction ng qualitative or social research, it could be more, no? Up to 5, 10 pages. Depende. So, eto na yung, since this is a review paper, we have added, this is a research qualitative paper. So, we have the so-called review or background, no? Push-pull motivations and hierarchical leisure constraints. We also have push-pull motivations, no? So ano itong push-pull motivations, which are internal and external stimuli that drive motivations. So we talk about that, and also the hierarchical constraints. So ano itong hierarchical constraints? No, leisure constraint theory, which is used in tourism-related studies. So parang dinescribe niya yung ano yung background ng research. And what has been the previous research done. Yan. And para itong review of related literature. And we also talk about climate change and agritourism. So ano yung effect ng climate change sa environment and also to tourism, the impacts on tourism. And the effects on agriculture as well. Okay, so you can see we have stated a lot of references there. Yan. And now we have here a table on the impacts of climate change to summarize all. So, So ito na yung result. So, ayan. The positive and negative impact. And we also have the Samoan context, tourism in Samoa. Ito na yung mga result natin. So, ano yung, a background pa pala. So, ano yung agriculture in Samoa. And also, now after the literature or background, now we discuss the research methods which we have discussed last time, no? We have already discussed this during the proposal. So ito lahat is just to state again what we use. Again, we use a qualitative approach, in-depth interviews, and so on. So listed farmers. So medyo mahaba-haba siya kasi we describe the different stakeholders that we interviewed, like the Samora STA or Samora Tourism Authority, the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries, Samora Farmers Association. So lahat na yan. In total, we have 15 participants, no? And these are enumerated in the table, the research participants. So ito lahat yung aming in-interview in just 1 week duration. And then, naka-describe pa in detail, no, kung ilang minutes. kami nag-interview, and it is in English, of course. And when did it happen? No. And then it was recorded and transcribed into text. And merong strategy na ginamit, which was described earlier, about push and pull motivations and hierarchical leisure constraint theory. Manual coding was also undertaken to identify things from these interviews. So kaya na-enumerate namin dito kung ano yung mga topics because of that. And discussion guides, no, we are semi-structured interviews. So it means ang question is conversational, two-way natural conversational. So pwede siya magtanong since semi-structured siya. So may mga guided question, but then you can always ask more question, no, which will make whatever interests both of the interviewee and interviewer. So we talk about how is the discussion guide was done. So finally, ito na yung result. So what are the motivation? Ayun. So ito na yung result kasi ang topic natin is what are the motivation and the constraint. So we listed here the motivations and the threats of climate change. Yan. And also, so ito na yung mga na-find out namin out of the interview. For example lang we have learned that yung Samoa pala ay nagkaroon ng cyclone, no, in December 2012, which wiped out the whole half of the country, I think, and then they were devastated. So the climate, the weather, that's now the effect of climate change. So we also talk about the agritourism here. So ano yung ano ang kanilang, which was enumerated here, lahat ito. So ito, as you can see, are already in quotation since this was actually said by the one that we interviewed. As he said, originally, we came here to reclaim the land or to prevent the land from being taken over by other people. We tried to maintain this land. It was important to our family that somebody came and did something, and that was a lot of motivation to come here. Plus, we wanted to live in Samoa. So, like they on actually, kasi ang tawag sa kanila hindi hectares but acres, say. So they own a lot of acres, let's say maybe 100 acres, and they said that the motivation nga nung nag-agritourism sila is para gamitin nila ang yuta, no, at para dili na siya mailog sa uban, no. So that was one of their motivation, and there were a lot pa, no, bakit sila nag-vanilla and so on, yan. So yun yung mga words na sinabi nila. So they said one of the problems, that constraint that they have, now this is talking about constraint, is yung talaga maasahan na staff, yung worker, reliable staff. So they said it's very difficult to find people, and because of the distance from Apia or the capital of the country, they really need to live in the village or the next village. So it doesn't just seem there's a lot of people who willing to work or available to work. Yan, wala silang masyadong worker. Kung dito sa Pilipinas, wala tayong mga available na jobs kahit gusto nating magtrabaho. Sa kanila naman, wala masyadong. Yan ang mga constraint. No?
Ayun na, Bin, no? Sa teka.
So again, yun yung some of the constraint. No? And so it is enumerated, lahat dito is well described. And they say also the problem is a lot of these findings schemes come with specific condition and I can get help. So walang masyadong help from other people or even from the government na available. So or business over regulation or bureaucracy is also an issue or constraint. So after the constraints, the motivation, then we also talk about the potential agritourism. So um, they say they don't understand agritourism well, and but then it's dahil maraming tourists, so it's really very potential, no? Yeah. So, and then the commercial farms with agritourism, since we went to them that they are already offering, but not all of them are offering, but then so with this farm, we describe ano yung kanilang reason, and that one thing is to educate, no, about farm and so on. So those are just the result. Now we discuss the discussion about motivators, constraints among agritourism business. So ito yung mga motivators na nakita namin, no, and climate change constraints, conventional constraints, and potential, and also in commercial farm. And then, yes. So yun ang mga diniscuss na namin in terms of what we find out, no, ano yung, is this like, when we compare, so when we compare with other results from previous studies, so like for example, the potential of agritourism and commercial farms see agritourism as a potential job creation activity, especially among the youth. So that does it coincide with um other authors. So that's why we in the discussion kailangan talaga may mga authors na isa-cite. So overall, the economic and social cultural motivators are considered equally important. So, and secondly, conventional constraints exist among agritourism. So, and also that is backed up with some other authors, so on. So thirdly, unlike conventional constraints, there are two features of climate change, no, that affects temperature and so on. So in it highlights two aspects need to be considered, which are specific to tourism, the intangible services, and what else? Conventional tangible goods, no? So yun yung mga point or highlights, the intangible services yung, and the tangible goods. So they in the end, so they say doing agritourism, understand the necessity and significance of agritourism despite various conventional constraints and emerging climate change constraints. Thus, these operators fall in the category of in the proposition table 1. So, dinescribe lahat yung result. So, in conclusion, we conclude about what is the contribution of the study to knowledge, no? And because of this study, we have first in the conclusion of how we describe how we did the interview, and what is the focus, and what is the aims, or and then the push and pull motivation that has been used. So in all, agritourism can be an opportunity or could be doubly burdened at the same time, no? So it's for an opportunity to showcase, to educate the people, no? Especially like for us, since we are studying agriculture, alam natin kung saan galing yung mga prutas at saka mga kinakain natin. But in some people, like let's say those who are in business or those who are in arts, no, they don't even know na paano magtanim or saan galing yung mga kinakain nila, no. And one way to educate them is through tourism, like when they have vacation. So if sometimes when you have your vacation, we always go to the beach, to the swimming pool, and so on. But when sometimes you also go to the mountains or to the farm, could also be another alternative. So what is then the contribution to practice? No, so ano yung naka ano ito eh. We have first, second, and so on, third. So ano yung existing and ano pa yung ma-recommend natin? So marami yan. And how to address the climate change. And what are the limitations and need further research. So, yun. Ang ganda ng pagkagawa. Charmora yung ganang. It's not because I am one of the author, but I just, since we have a third author for this, so that was really written very nice, and from a simple proposal, then it came out like this. So I'm really amazed, tsaka na-impress masyado. So going back now, these are the references. As you notice, um ayan, dapat yung ano yung format ng first, ganun din ang format ng second, third, up to the last. So as you can see, ang daming references. So it means ang dami din naming binasa, ang dami naming so there were in the first proposal there were two of us, but as we go along, uh, uh, as we finish the paper, may third person kami as an editor, or so I guess we still have 5 minutes, so I can show you where we actually got the paper. Yes, so here, so this is where we submit the paper. If I can still remember my user ID, was it? Oh my God. Tama siya. So, this is the link where we submitted. So, ito yung, pag nag-submit ka na, you have to what do you call that, to make your account. No, I know you can follow very well, no, kasi I know like using it's just as simple as using Quiper. As simple na lang karon, no, ang maggamit sa Quiper. As using Quiper, using email. So ganun din, gagawa ka ng account, and then you go to the, so nandito yung mga guidelines, no, kung paano yung yung kanyang format. And then when you go to the author, let's say as when you go to, so as you can see here, it was uploaded by Dr. Pratt Stephen, and the reviewer is Dr. John Fletcher. So it's still under review. So these are the dashboard. We call it dashboard na paano, and then if you are going to submit another one, so you can start here. Okay. Or okay, so that's it, I guess. So do you have any questions or clarification regarding what do you call this? Qualitative research, sample qualitative research. Okay, so as we go on into this book, The Scientific Writing for Agricultural Research Scientists, since we still have 2 minutes. So this is a training manual actually. So this is what you can see on the different contents. So as I have said, we are done with chapter 1, 2, and about the avenues of the communication of science and choosing the journal. So we will start with the IMRAD format for presenting research papers. And actually, this is a long hanggang publication and publishing online journal. So this would be parang in continuation as a finals. So we already have discussed this that effective communication is an essential part of the scientific endeavor. So if you are a scientist, if you are a scientist, um, it's really important that you are going to submit or to parang publishing paper is one way of communicating. Now in the academe, once you become you in the college, like in the college level, no, it is a must when you go to a university, when you become a lecturer, it is a must that you have to have a research activity and also publish papers kasi it's part of being in the academe. But maybe in the undergraduate or the kanang mga primary institution like mag-teach lang ka sa, but most of you, if you want to do an academy, most probably you will be assigned, if not in the senior college kasi sa senior na siya murag home gardening man na tawag, whatever, and but mostly sa college jud mo mag-fall. So just as I have said, we have already talked about the different avenues for the communication of science. So that includes wait lang, samok-samok na po niya. That includes yung research reviews, short communication. So if you still remember our first topics on this, theses, conferences, papers, posters, theses,